Let's talk about them JavaScript variables. So I want you to create a new file called variables.html in your JS folder and add that basic structure, some title, information there, normalize CSS if you wish, level 1 heading, and most importantly, add a script tag with the type of text/JavaScript. So JavaScript variables are containers for storing data. So remember, I told you to think of buckets on the beach. Remember that? That your bucket can store stuff in it. You can store, you can store sand, you can store shovels, you can store water, you can store, whatever you want in that bucket. And in JavaScript, those variables are like containers or buckets, and they can store numbers or strings of text. They can store math. They can store values. And so to create a JavaScript variable, you need to what is called declare the variable. And you do that simply like this. You type in the var keyword, all lowercase, and then your variable name could be whatever you want. So bucket on beach. So there we go. I just declared a variable. So at this point, the variable exists in the computer program or the website, but there is no data stored within the variable. So we just have an empty bucket. So you can store data in a variable by assigning a value. And you would assign a value like so. Bucket on beach. You can see here that brackets already knows that that variable now exists in the computer program. And then you assign a value by using the equal sign. So that's an assignment operator. And I'm just going to store a string of text. Now remember, a string is always between single or double quotes. So sand, stones, shovel. So now it's going to store that technically sentence, those three items there. And the variable only knows this as kind of a sentence. It doesn't know that those are three separate things. So if we wanted to output that, we would simply just do something like document.write. And then we would say bucket on beach. Now, if I go to our little, the website here, or the web page, there you go, sand, stones, shovel. It's exporting or printing our variable, our bucket on beach variable. So you can keep it simple and store a value in a variable when you declare a variable. So instead of doing the two separate lines here, you could do something like this. Var bucket on beach equals sand, stones, shovel. Now I'm just going to comment this out as well so it doesn't have two instances of it. And so it just could prove to you that this works. And again, I can document and write bucket on beach, and you would get the exact same value. And just to prove it to you, I can change it. So sand, stones, rocks. There we go. Now, you're probably curious, what will happen if we had this variable declared earlier with value assigned to it? Up here, what would happen? Let's just find out. So you could see it takes the later variable because we've re-established that variable with new value. If I just put this as empty, I've then just kind of emptied that variable, that bucket. So that's how that kind of works. And now another example of a variable would be something like this. You could just say var a equals 12, var b equals 24, and then var c equals a plus b. And so here, a, the variable stores the number 12, b stores the number 24, and c stores the value of a plus b, which is 36. And just to prove that, we could say document.write C. And so you could see here, it's tagged on the end here because it's all in one line. Maybe what we would do here is to split these up, we could just do something like this. Document.write. And then I would just write two HTML break tags like so. So just to split it up so you can see. So we have the number 36. So it's doing a bit of math there. Okay, and then now to let you know that all JavaScript variables need to have unique names. And the names of these variables, so these ones here, ABC or bucket on beach, these are technically called identifiers. And you can use short identifiers like ABC, or you can have something longer and a bit more descriptive, like first name, date of birth, total price, something like this. Let me just show you. I can have something like this. Var first name, I can have var last name, var date of birth. So I can use longer, more descriptive variables, it's pretty common because you want to be able to know what your variables are doing when you're building a website or a computer program. And there are rules for naming those identifiers that you need to keep in mind. So they are case sensitive. So for example, var first name is a very different variable, is an entirely different variable than var first name with a lowercase n. So you can see this one has capital N, this one has lowercase n. Now I'll just say this variable is not the same as this one. There you go. And they must begin with a letter. So you need to begin with a letter, but you can use digits, underscores, and dollar signs, but it needs to always start with a letter. So you can't start it with a number 1 or something like that. You need to be able to start it with a letter. There are a number of reserved words that you cannot use. Words like JavaScript or math or continue, and you can check those out at this URL right here. Reserved words you cannot use as variables. And so, yeah, you can't use those because those are used as pre-built functions or, things in JavaScript or other programming languages that you cannot use because it will clash and create, some bugs or wreak havoc on your script or computer program. So you need to keep that in mind and just kind of use creative words that aren't words that you would use in that are reserved in JavaScript. So just check those out. You can also store different data types in variables like numbers and strings. So, an example of a number, you would say var x equals 99.7. So that's a number. And a string would be something like var first name. Well, we already have that. Well, let's do something like var fancy pants equals Brad. And anything in a string, so single or double quotes, will be treated as text, as a string. So for example, if you were to do something like var string number equals 3.14, so this value in this variable will be treated as a string, not an actual numerical value. That's the kind of rule when it comes to programming languages, many of them, but specifically in JavaScript. So let me just write a note here for you. This number is technically a string, technically not a number because it is within strings. Okay, and you can have multiple variables in a single statement. So instead of like right here we've been doing multiple variables in statements, and a statement is defined and closed with this semicolon. So this is a statement. Whoops, this is a statement. This is a statement, and this is a statement. But you can simplify that by putting multiple variables in a single statement. So the reason why you do this is because some web developers like to be super efficient and minimize typing and precious file size. And while maybe this might not save some file size, it's just keeps things clean, and you can do it. So why not? So you can declare and assign a value to multiple variables in a single statement like so. So var first name equals Brad, and then instead of doing this and a new one, I could do something like this, comma, last name equals Hussey, comma, likes to surf, true. And these are all in a single line. And you can see I didn't say var before each of them. It just, JavaScript knows I'm trying to assign values to each of these newly declared variables. You can also have them on separate lines, like so. And you can see brackets tried to keep it tabbed just for simplicity here. So you can see, yeah, hey, like var, we're trying to establish these three. So you don't have to type var each time, and you can keep it on a single line. So that's another thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do in JavaScript is math. And we've already kind of covered this, but you can do math. So you can do math. And so let's just do a bit of math. So var x equals 100. And why don't we do it all in a single line here, in a single statement. So var x, y equals 2.462. And let's say z equals 40.99. Let's close that statement. And then we'll say var total sum is equal to x, times y times z. And why don't we document.write total sum. See what we get. There we go. We get some big ugly number. And so that's JavaScript doing some math for you. Now, another thing that you need to know about is something called concatenation, and we'll cover this. We'll get into this a little bit, once we kind of dive into, our upcoming lectures. But I'll give you a little tidbit here. So concatenation is basically like combining strings, numbers, or both in a single variable. So you can combine them using concatenation operators. So for example, var foo equals, now I'm in a string saying web. Now I'm not going to end there. I'm going to concatenate another string to this string. So I would use the plus, which is a concatenation operator, and then space. You don't have to do space. You can keep it like this if you want, but the space doesn't affect anything. And then another set of strings, but I'm going to put space in between. So now that string will be treated as a space, literally an empty space. And then another concatenation operator there, the plus, and then in a string, developer. And then I'm going to close that statement. So this is going to store web space developer in this variable. And just for some proof, why don't we document.write that? And we're going to say foo. And we're going to need to document write another couple break tags here, just to give us some line space. Okay, let's check it out. Web developer, you see? See how that works? And now you might wonder, like, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just keep it in one single kind of string there? Well, you can do that, but when you're programming and you're using kind of dynamic content, you're doing math, sometimes you don't know what the next, what you're concatenating. You need to concatenate a value depending on what the user inputs in a form, and then you can concatenate that, or if the user typed in their, first name and last name in a form, but you don't know what their first name and last name is, you need the computer to program that to generate what their input is. You can use concatenation to store that info, their full name in a variable. Now another example of concatenation, you could do something like this: var f name for first name. I'm going to say Brad, and then I'm going to say, let's put this in a single statement again. L name equals Hussey, and then we'll say full name equals f name. F name. Concatenate. Now we need a string with a space in the middle, and then L name. So now if I were to document write this out, full name, and I'm going to have that space again because why not? Check it out in the browser. Brad Hussey. So this is a perfect example. You might not know the value of f name or L name because maybe the user inputs this value, and you'd use that in a form, and we'll get into that a little later. So you don't know what their name is. You just know that you need to store it in two variables, f name and L name, and then you need to concatenate them together so that you can have their full name. So that's an example of how that works. Another way of concatenating would be doing something like so. You can use a concatenation operator that's a bit more efficient. So again, we want to be efficient. So let's say var blurb equals Johnny, and then a space, var blurb, I'm going to reestablish this variable with a plus equals, which is a concatenation operator, which lets you add the value of this variable to the variable that you already did. So it's just going to re-add another value to this variable. Bravo. So it's not going to reset the variable. It's going to add this value to this variable. And let's prove that again. Document dot write blurb. Okay, so it looks like we have a problem. And what we would do here is inspect element to see if we get a JavaScript error in the console, and it will tell me here, yes, there's an error. Uncaught syntax error, unexpected token. So it doesn't like this, this concatenation operator here. And I know exactly why. The reason why is because I reestablished this variable. So by putting var, I'm redefining blurb. So now blurb has nothing in it, and it's trying to add this to the current value, but there's nothing in there because I put var. So I need to remove var because it's already defined. I just need to add more content, more value, another value in addition to what's currently there. So by removing the var keyword, now this should work. There we go. Johnny Bravo. Perfect. Now you can also mix a string and a number by concatenating. So like so, you could say var e equals hello. So we have a string, and then concatenate just a number, 3.14. And when you mix a string and a number, you'll always get a string. So again, proof document.write. Let's go e and let's check it out. Hello 3.14. So this is treated as a string. It is not treated as a number. Even though this is a number, a numerical value, integer, it's actually treating it as a string because it is concatenated with a string, like so. And so that is the basics of JavaScript variables. I've given you a download, course files download at the beginning of this section, so you can obviously download all of the HTML and the JavaScript that we are working on in this section, so you can reference what you're writing and play around with it. And I encourage you just to play around with some variables, play around with, different names, different values, do some math, try concatenating some things and just see what happens. Just experiment. Make sure to check out those reserved words you can't use as variables, and yeah, have fun with it. And we're going to be jumping into more JavaScript coming up next.